Ever since I learned there is a thing called monoblock amplifiers, I dreamt of having them because to me it seemed like a true audiophile product. But they were all very expensive, at least the ones I saw. But that was until Fosi Audio released their ZA3 amplifier. That is a stereo amplifier, but can also be used as a mono amplifier. So I guess I was one of the first who ordered it. And shortly after, they released V3 Monos, which were the true dedicated mono amplifiers, so proper monoblocks. And of course, I was also one of the first to purchase them, supported their Kickstarter campaign, and I ended up with 2 pairs of monoblock amplifiers from the same producer. After having lived with them for more than half a year, I decided to record my thoughts on the comparison of both and hopefully save you trouble and money if you are about to make a decision of which monoblock amplifiers to choose from, considering Fosi Audio, ZA3s or V3 Monos. Please excuse my background, but I'm in the middle of switching the apartments, and I am in an intermediary one, thus the mattress behind me. But frankly speaking, it improves the room acoustics dramatically, so maybe it will become my permanent fixture. If you're watching this video, congratulations. It means that you survived 2024. Which, from what I heard, was a very challenging year, not only for me, but also for a lot of other people. Let me know in the comments how was your past year. And let's hope the year 2025 will be even better for all of us. But obviously you're not here for me bitching about the past year. So let's get straight into the comparison of those two monoblocks or semi-monoblocks in one case from Fosi Audio. ZA3 stereo amplifier that can also be bridged as a monoblock, and V3 Mono. They are both, of course, Class D amplifiers. They utilize the same amp chip, which is Texas Instrument TPA 3255, which is, I think, the most popular amplifying chip in modern Class D amplifiers, at least the ones that come from China. Those two amps differ slightly, not only in the looks, but also in functionalities and technology. So I will briefly discuss the differences between them, the technical differences, and also the sonic differences, because there are some subtle but audible, at least to me. And at the end of this video, I will give my opinion on which one is better for a specific application. So the ZA3 utilizes a technology called PBTL, which is which means parallel.
5 minutes later.
So the ZA3 features PBTL technology, which means parallel bridge tied load. And from what I understand, in the mono mode, it uses both right and left channel amplification in parallel to provide more current to the speakers, which helps driving speakers, especially at lower impedances. But I'm not a very technical guy, so if you know what exactly the PBTL technology does and how it's beneficial to an amplifier, please let me know in the comments, educate me and educate other members of the community. That will be greatly appreciated. The V3 Mono, on the other hand, has only one channel amplifier inside, and it utilizes something that is called PFFB, so post filter feedback technology, which according to the producer, and I quote, significantly reduces distortion, enhances linearity and frequency response. That's what they say on their website. And the measurements provided for both amps do show slightly lower noise floor for V3 compared to the ZA3. However, they both have really great measurements. For the ZA3, the signal to noise ratio is above 106 decibels, which is already great. And for V3 monos, it's even higher. It's more than 123 decibels. Total harmonic distortion for both is 0.006%. Again, great figures. The frequency response for the ZA3 is 20 Hz to 20 kilohertz, and for the V3 mono it's 10 Hz to 30 kilohertz. But by now we are already accustomed to the fact that those Chinese class D amps measure great, and on paper everything looks fantastic. What's interesting about those little class D amps is that more and more high-end people seem to be appreciative of them. I recently watched one of the videos from Paul McGowan, the founder and CEO of PS Audio, an audio company that produces high-end gear, and he was praising some of those amps as well. But what he said about the PFFB technology is that if a technology that uses feedback loop in the amp has to be introduced, it means that the amp was poorly designed, because the signal should be sent through a straight path without any corrections, without needing any corrections and needing any feedback loops. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what he said.
That's what he said.
V3 Mono is obviously smaller than the ZA3, because ZA3 is a stereo amp that can work as a monoblock, and this one is just a monoblock, so it only has one channel amplification inside, requires less space for outputs and inputs, for example, because it only supports one channel. But yeah, and they are both quite small for amplifiers compared to Class A or Class AB amplifiers. But of course, you need to bear in mind that they both require a separate power brick. This one is 48 volts, 10 amps. So I guess the most powerful you can connect to those amps. ZA3 accepts anything between 24 to 48 volts, and is most commonly sold, I guess, with 48.5 amp power brick. And V3 accepts voltage from 32 to 48 volts, and is also sold with 48.5 amp power brick as the most popular option. And of course the external amplification adapter or power adapter to the large extent determines what output power those amplifiers will have. And speaking of that, of course, ZA3 is slightly less powerful than the V3 Mono, sorry, but they both have more than enough power to drive any speaker. They produce more than 100 watts of usable power, usable meaning resulting in very low distortion. Above that, they both start to distort quite significantly. There are other channels that provide measurements, so you can have a look at this. Being of a smaller size, the V3 Mono has less space inside for air to circulate, so I guess it's because of that it runs much hotter than the ZA3 when it operates, even if it's not if the volume is not cranked up too much. It's simply very cramped together inside, and it makes it more difficult to cool it, even though it has those cooling vents on the sides. ZA3 has more or less the same vents on the sides, but you can feel that there is much more space inside. And speaking of the internals, in both of those amps, you can, of course, swap op amps to improve or change the sonic characteristic of those amplifiers, and swapping op amps has become a really popular thing among the users and owners of such amplifiers, like tube rolling among the owners of tube amps, because it produces more or less the same result. V3 Mono is also easier to operate compared to the ZA3. It's more straightforward because it is just a pure amplifier and one channel amplifier. So at the back you have two inputs, either balanced, which accepts XLR and TSR plugs. Let me focus on that. And this one is of course single-ended input with a gain switch, where you can change gain from 25 to 31 dB, and it has two binding posts, two speaker binding posts, which are outputs, and a place to plug your power brick. The binding posts are really tiny and not very high quality, but they do accept bananas, plugs, and bare wires, so they are usable. At the front, it only has the XLR or RCA switch, and here you have the power switch. You can set it to off, on, or auto. I will talk about this auto feature in a minute. And ZA3 is an integrated amplifier, meaning that it has both the amplifying section inside and the pre-amplification section, basically meaning the volume control and ability to switch between sources. I guess that's this one. XLR or RCA, you can connect to different to different units or sources of music to it. And here you have the simple switch to switch it from mono to stereo mode. On the back we have both XLR, so balanced and unbalanced inputs. You also have a subwoofer out, which is very nice because if you use them as monoblocks, you can add two separate subwoofers for both left and right channels. The same tiny speaker binding post, but obviously two sets of them for the left and right channel. You have the power plug here, and here we have 12 volt trigger in, which means that if you connect it with your, for example, preamplifier or source unit like a DAC, using a cable like this. So this is simply a 3.5 millimeter jack. It can be turned on automatically when the source of the music is turned on, which is quite nice uh, because you don't have to switch each separate unit separately, but it means that you have to run another cable between the between the units. And this is where V3 Mono, from the functionality perspective, is nicer in my opinion, because it has this let me zoom in again, this auto feature, which means that it detects the audio signal coming into the amp, and the amplifier wakes up itself. So there is no need to drag any external additional cable to it. Of course, you need to drag the signal cable to the amp, but you don't need like another trigger cable. The only drawback is that it takes about a second for those amps to wake up. So when you start a song, the first track, you like lose the first seconds, the first notes of the first song. So that might be a bit annoying, but I can live with that. I'd rather have this than having to drag extra cables as triggers. And speaking of the cables, what I like about monoblocks, and I think it's one of their advantages, is the fact that you can place them next to your speakers, one amp next to your left speaker and one amp left next to your right speaker. And from this amp to the speaker, you only need to put a very short speaker cable. So like a 1 meter, or what is it, 3 feet cable is enough, which means, one, that the signal in the speaker cable is less prone to any interferences because it's very short, and also that you can purchase a higher quality speaker cable and it won't cost you an arm and a leg, because you only need short pieces of this cable. And yeah, I do believe that cables matter, but let's not go into this rabbit hole right now. And of course, when you put this next to your speaker, it means that the cable from your music source, like preamplifier or a DAC, needs to be longer. But worry not, because those two amps have balanced cables, or balanced connections, so you can run a balanced cable, and balanced cable is in general immune to any interferences that might occur when you have a long piece of this cable. One more cool thing I noticed in the V3 Mono, this is the V3 Mono, when I was preparing for this recording, are those tiny rubber feet on the bottom. They are nicely branded by Fosi Audio. It says designed by Fosi Audio and their logo. I think it's a very nice detail, very nice touch that shows attention to the detail that Fosi Audio puts in those inexpensive products. So good job. I mentioned that V3 monos are easier to operate as monoblocks because you only connect cables to it, set those to rocker switches, and you're good to go. The ZA3, being an integrated amplifier, has volume control that also doubles as a switch on and off switch when you press it. And the presence of this volume pot means that if you want to make sure that both left and right channels are equally amplified, if you are using the ZA3s as monoblocks, you need to set this volume potentiometer at exactly the same position on both amplifiers. Otherwise, the channels won't be balanced. The obvious thing is just to crank it up to the maximum and leave it like this. This way, you also make sure that you utilize the whole power of the amplifier and just control the volume on your preamplifier. And that's what I did. But the problem I found was that when I turned the volume by to more than 50% on those amplifiers, I could hear hiss in my speakers, and the only way to get rid of it was yeah, turning it down to around 50%. And that is a problem in my opinion, because it means that you're not utilizing the full power of the amplifier, and that you need to make sure that you have those set precisely on both amplifiers and both channels. And with my OCD, I really had trouble accepting this fact. That is why I like the V3 monos better, because you don't have such a problem here. You just turn it on and it works. So were there any sonic differences between those two amps? I used them with stock op amps. I haven't swapped op amps yet, but I am going to do that because I have a few sets of different, presumably better op amps, so I want to do that. But out of the box, those two sounded, at least to my ears, a bit differently, even though they are on the same chips, amplifying chips, and they are made by the same producer. It only shows that amp chips, like DAC chips inside DACs, are not the only thing that determines how the unit sounds. ZA3 sounded a bit warmer, a bit fuller on the bottom, had a bit more, I would say, fuller bass and lower mid-range, and probably because of that the sound seemed a bit warmer, not by very much, but I could hear the difference. It was not by any means too gooey or not precise or not detailed, but compared to the V3 monos, it was audibly warmer. And V3 monos are more analytical, they have great bass control, but the bass is, in my opinion, a bit tighter and faster than in case of the ZA3. I don't know if it's because of those different technologies applied, the PBTL in the ZA3 and PFFB in V3 monos. So depending on the rest of your system, you might like either one better. Frankly speaking, I stuck with the V3 monos because I like this sonic characteristics better, and also from the functional perspective, I also like those a bit better, even though they heat up a lot when they are in operation. In my opinion, ZA3 is an amplifier that is better suited for those who do not yet know if they want monoblocks or cannot afford them right away, because they can just purchase one unit and then later on add another one and switch them into monoblocks. And that will be a very nice way to upgrade your system and see the difference between monoblocks and a stereo amplifier. For me, the main difference was channel separation. I could really hear the difference between one and two ZA3s, for example. Left and right channels were audibly better separated, so this the scene was a bit wider when you use two separate monoblocks with two separate power bricks. I mentioned that because I know that the V3 monos are sold in pairs with one power brick that has a splitter. So you have one common power brick with a splitter going to both amps. To me, it sort of defies the idea of monoblocks, because the channels are not totally separated when they have a common power supply, and power supply is arguably the most important thing in a power amplifier. So to have true monoblocks, in my opinion, you need two separate power adapters for each of those amps. And if you're looking specifically for monoblocks, I would suggest V3 monos. They were designed as monoblocks from the very beginning. They perform better, in my opinion. They are simpler to use, and maybe the only drawback is that they produce more heat than ZA3s, because they have less space for the air to circulate inside. And I think that they are great monoblocks, not only for those who just begin their audiophile journey, but could very well be your only monoblocks you will ever need, because they provide a lot of clean power. They can comfortably drive most, if not all, speakers you can imagine, and they are inexpensive. A couple of those is only slightly more expensive than one ZA3 unit. I will put the links in the description below to Amazon and Aliexpress, so you can check the current prices, because they fluctuate, and also depending on the power brick you choose, the prices differ.